essay has a job to do. And we start off with that intro that has the thesis within it. And the thesis is your main argument. And how do you prove an argument just in general?
I was just saying facts about what you know or how you feel about certain situations.
Sure, you have to actually claim like the argument you're trying to make, and then you have to back yourself up with like more than one piece of evidence, right? You have to have multiple pieces of evidence in order to, convince someone of your point of view. So you can think about, the thesis as the roadmap of the essay, and then each one of your body paragraphs is like a mini argument that supports that thesis, right? We can think about it kind of as a three-legged stool, for example, right? And the top where you sit is your intro with your thesis in it, and then each leg is a body paragraph, right? Each of them is like propping up that topic sentence or that thesis that you're trying to argue for. Now, zooming in on the body paragraphs, right? Each one of those has a topic sentence, which is kind of like a mini thesis, like it's kind of like the thesis just of that paragraph. And then from there, you have to, as you said, like bring in information, bring in basically supporting details to prove that topic sentence point, right? And then hopefully, once you've read that intro and the body paragraphs, like you're convinced at some point, right? Enough like argumentation and enough evidence to support your points has happened that it kind of adds up to like, yeah, sure, like I'll buy your argument, right? It makes sense to me. So we're gonna kind of hone in on one strategy of how to write body paragraphs, and we call them in English 104 P.I.E paragraphs as an easy way to remember the structure. So we're going to practice tonight writing a P.I.E paragraph kind of on its own, but for the rest of the semester, when you're writing P.I.E paragraphs, it's going to be in the context of body paragraphs in essays. So, first of all, why did we ask you in 104 and then beyond into your 1A classes and then even your English 4, English 7, you have to take like at least 2 more composition English classes before you can get out of here. Why do we ask you to do it this way? So there are other ways to construct paragraphs, but this one we're using just because it is simple and it works really well. It gives you paragraph structure. So how many of you sit down to write a body paragraph and you know, okay, it's got to be on topic, it's got to have to do with my thesis, if hopefully I have one, but then you sit down and you're like, how do I fill up this space? How many of us feel that way? Okay. So if you're using your P.I.E structure, you will always know what you need to be writing at every stage of that paragraph. It kind of walks itself through becoming structurally sound if you follow this P.I.E formula. It is also reader friendly. So, just because you sit down and you don't know what to write, and then you somehow write something, doesn't mean that your reader can't also tell that, right? If it's full of fluff. Your reader sits down and goes, okay, I'm a little bit confused too. I'm not quite sure, how this paragraph is furthering or supporting your thesis. So it walks your reader through the main ideas, the supporting evidence, and the analysis in a clear and logical way. And then also it helps you make sure you're not going off topic in an essay. If you have a strong P.I.E structure, you won't wander off into something that is kind of like distracting or taking away from your main points. So the first part of P.I.E, the P, stands for point. And this, as we said a little bit earlier, is the topic sentence. So the topic sentence, and we already talked about this a little bit, is the main idea or argument you are trying to make in the paragraph. So a topic sentence is not a fact. It has to be arguable. It has to be a claim that you're making. It's not talking about someone else's idea, what an outside source has to say on the topic. It is one supporting argument that helps to explain or support your thesis. Okay, and so when the P.I.E paragraph is a body paragraph in your essay, this is what it's going to be most of the time, it will be supporting detail of your thesis. When the P.I.E paragraph stands alone, as it will tonight, because you're going to get to write one tonight as well, it is just a specific point you are making about your topic. So whatever the topic is, you're seeking to make a point about it. You're seeking to kind of bring your reader's attention to a point about it. And then we get into the information, which is what I stands for. So the information comes directly after the point. It is the evidence you use to support and develop the point of your paragraph. So this can be many, many different things. For the purposes of this class, most of the time, it's going to be bringing in an outside source and probably a quotation from an outside source. You should always smoothly introduce your information and give the reader enough context to understand it. Don't just drop it in. So a lot of times people are like, okay, P.I.E, I get it. Like one sentence for my point, and then I just drop my quote in, and then I write a little bit more. But why might that not quite be enough?
You have lost your reader as to the point or the topic in which you're trying to convey.
Yeah.
Because they won't really understand if you're quoting something that you haven't discussed or brought to their attention or made an example of.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times I'll get students who just like throw a quote in and they don't say, you know, where it came from, or they don't explain like why they're using this particular quote from this source to back up their topic sentence, right? You have to like smoothly integrate it in. You know, even though your classmates and I am going to be the one who's reading your essay, because we're doing like peer review and stuff, and we've all read the same outside sources that are going to go into your essay, you kind of have to imagine that your reader is basically a well-educated person who may or may not know the outside source that you're using. So you've got to give enough context to like smoothly bring it in, so by the time you have that quotation in there, it makes sense. Like we're ready to hear it. Any questions so far? We're also going to talk more on Thursday about how to format the quotations correctly. So, other types of information. Okay, most of the time it's going to be a quotation, it's going to be a paraphrase maybe from an outside source, particularly our in-class readings. But sometimes it's going to be personal experience. If you remember looking at the grading criteria for the Unit 2 essay, it says, you know, the writer uses their own life and learning to connect to the topics in the essay. So you're going to have to somehow find like a connection with whatever you're writing about and bring your own life story in. Now, this doesn't have to be like one-on-one particularly, because I highly doubt any of us like spent time in, you know, a camp like Manzanar, right? It's probably not one-to-one gonna like totally reflect our life experience, but somehow you're gonna find a way of relating and bringing that in. Or honestly, if you can't think of anything, you are allowed to make it up in order to like, you know, support yourself. So, or you could have an experience of other people, something from the mass media or current events. Our politics right now are full of really, really interesting things that you can talk about and analyze and discuss. Popular culture, TV songs, movies, music videos, et cetera, et cetera. Now you have to be a little bit careful when you're bringing in popular culture that you're doing so for like a particular academic reason, right? You're actually like analyzing something that's going on. You know, not just bringing in Britney Spears just because you want to talk about her, although that's a really dated reference probably. And then, you know, history. So important events, dates or movements, even other kind of books and outside information that you found. Now, for the purposes of your Unit 2 essay, you have to bring in 2 outside sources from what we've read in class. So Farewell to Manzanar, To Any Would-Be Terrorist, or Myth of the Latin Woman, and your own personal life experience. You do not have to bring in any of this other stuff. The purpose of having this up here is just to show you, you know, if you're writing a P.I.E paragraph, say, in other contexts, right, for another class or something, these are also options of what could make up that information portion. Questions at this point?
I think we're going to next.
Okay, so this is going to be on Blackboard too. Yeah. So don't worry. Don't worry.
Okay,
Copy
good.
like me.
Good.
Oh, you already printed it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, very nice, very nice. And then here's just a few more things that information could be comprised of, depending, of course, on the point you're making, depending on kind of the, you know, the point of your writing, the context of your writing. We're talking about tradition or definition. So this is going to be, I think one of our examples we're going to see in a little while does have to do with kind of defining what terms mean. So that could be another part of the information. And then, of course, facts and statistics could also be that outside information that backs up your point. So, you have your topic sentence at the the beginning of your paragraph, the point that you were seeking to make. Then you have some sort of supporting information that comes after it. And then now you're ready to move on to the third component of the P.I.E paragraph. Anybody want to guess what the E's were? Yeah.
Evidence.
Explanation.
Explanation, yeah. That's a good guess though. Because information is a little bit like evidence here, but now we're moving on to explanation. And this is your analysis. Okay, so one more disclaimer about information before we move on. The information portion of the paragraph is not opinion or analysis. It is you reporting a piece of information that supports or helps to prove the point you are making as stated in your topic. So that's how the I and the E are different from each other. Since I'm going fast, I'll give you guys a second. So now in your third section of your body paragraph, you have your point, you have your information. Now you need to explain how they go together, basically. So here you're going to analyze the point and the information given, explaining why and how this information supports this topic sentence. So in other words, this is kind of a discussion of the information, how it relates to your point. This is a really important part. It's where you synthesize together the P and the I and show how the information proves the point. It's also where you interpret what the information means. So a lot of times you put in a quotation in your body paragraph and then you're sort of like, okay, what do I do now? It supports it, it proves it, it should be kind of self-evident. How many of us feel like this? Like you're not quite sure after you put that quotation in. So a really good place to start every time you put a quotation in is to then go, in other words, this is what the author is saying. So take that quotation and interpret what it means. Explain in your own words what's going on in that quotation. And that can sort of naturally lead you into then analyzing it and explaining kind of how it works, what the significance is. You can break down different parts of the statement if you need to, and then all show and explain how it proves your topic sentence. Questions, thoughts at this point? Yeah.
When do we choose topics?
What's that?
When can we choose topics?
Well, we went over the prompt options already last week in class. Yeah. If you don't remember that, we can talk about it more. Okay, so the explanation is also sometimes the most difficult part because you might not know what to write about. You might get to the analysis and go, okay, now I must analyze, and what does that exactly mean? So as I said a minute ago, make sure you interpret the I, especially if it is a quotation. What does it mean in your own words? And then how can you get your reader to really believe the point you are making? That's kind of your job to do in the rest of that paragraph. Give the reader all the good reasons why he or she should agree with your point and should understand what you are getting at in that topic sentence. So analysis is actually really, really difficult. Even understanding the difference between summary and analysis is like a big part of your growth as a writer. How many of you feel like you're not exactly sure perhaps what the difference is? Okay, so what is summary?
Summarizing, right? You're gonna give it your interpretation of what you know? Alright,
Yeah, that's like getting into the analysis arena. Yeah.
You're restating the original piece.
Yeah, good. So in a summary, all you're simply doing is reporting on someone else's ideas.
In your own words?
Uh-huh. So reporting in your own words someone else's ideas. So, in other words, this has to come from some kind of source, right? In an English class, what usually are you being
article, what else?
What else might you have for summaries?
Books,
Sure, books. Maybe even textbook, maybe like, something online, et cetera, et cetera. So, that brings me to, and I've run out of room here, what is analysis? It is distinctly different from summary, but they go hand in hand as important parts of writing.
I'm gonna take a guess. So summary is kind of restating the other's words, while analyzing is it probably includes a little bit of your own opinion.
Yeah, good. So analysis is your interpretation and opinion and argument about something, usually about like an outside source or about a topic that you're writing on. And I apologize, it's totally down here. But basically what I wrote is your interpretation and opinion and argument. So, how do you see both of these elements having to come about in an essay? Where do we find them in an essay, and why do we need both of them? Yes, I
Would you find analyzing the conclusion?
Yes. Where else do you find it?
In the body?
Yeah, this whole explanation part of the body paragraph, that's all analysis. So, the idea here is, you make an argument, you bring in some sort of outside information that relates to that argument, that helps to support it, and then you analyze that piece of information in the explanation portion. You interpret what it means, kind of why it's important, you break it down, and then you say, and this is why it backs up that point that I'm trying to make. So all of that part is the analysis part. And it really becomes an art, like developing your analysis skills. So my next question to you is, why is it not enough to just have an essay full of summary? Why do we also have to have analysis?
To prove a point.
Yeah.
Like what you were talking about and what you were trying to argue or give knowledge about.
Good. So the analysis portion is really what allows you to support your argument, right?
Yeah.
To prove your point and to sort of prove your argument.
And it also states how you feel about the whole thing, what's your opinion on it, and kind of the conclusion of what you or why you wrote what you wrote.
Yeah, it shows your unique sort of intellectual engagement with whatever topic it is that you have chosen or that you have to write about. If I just had a bunch of summaries, pretty much the whole class's papers would sound the same, right? Analysis asks you to apply some like creative and logical and rational thinking to whatever it is that you are going to write about. It is much more difficult than summarizing, right? It's sort of like a step up in kind of cognitive function when you are asked to like critically engage and look at an idea, and then you are asked to like create an argument about it or position on an issue, right? And then defend and support that position to really prove it. Questions at this point? Okay, we're almost done here. We're going to look at a couple more slides. So here's my pie chart. And if you don't think that's cute, that's okay. I think it's cute. So what should the proportions of each of these ingredients be? So this is ambitious, but this is what I want you to shoot for. So your point, your topic sentence is going to be the shortest part of your paragraph. Usually it's one sentence long. Perhaps if you have a complex point, it could be 2 sentences long. But it comes at the very top, it's going to be the shortest part. Then we have your information. Now you're going to spend some time kind of like getting us ready to understand understand, why you're choosing a particular outside source. You're going to introduce it to us. You're going to, kind of ease us into it, and then you're going to spend some time like explaining what your information is. But I want you to really try to shoot for as much explanation or analysis as possible. So that's why I recommend you, if you're using a quotation, break it down, interpret what it means first, and then go into some more analysis of like how it backs up your topic statements. So shoot for kind of roughly this kind of proportion here, where you have a lot of analysis, like a good amount of information, that's fine, but plenty of analysis there. Okay, and then we're going to have an example of a P.I.E paragraph. And this is an example that doesn't actually use an outside source. It's kind of easy to conceptualize them where it's like you have an argument, you have a quote, and then you have your analysis. But here's one that is just talking about like a personal experience. And then if you would like to follow along, if you can't read this very well or just don't feel like rewriting, this example and a couple more are in your packet that I gave you. So it's on page 2. So this first example, here's the point. People will always label me as a black woman at first glance. This is only half correct. I am both black and white. I refuse to give in and choose just one race to be. To do so would be to misrepresent who I am. So how can I tell that this is the main point of the paragraph? Like, what about this is like a claim that she's making that then she has to support?
Okay, so say that question one more time before I answer it.
In other words, how can we tell that this is a point, even if it, if it wasn't labeled there? How would we know?
Because she starts out, people always label me as a black woman at first glance. That's the point she's trying to make. She backs it up by this is only half correct, and both black and white. And then the other part of it is just her own opinion, I guess.
Okay.
So the first sentence is, I believe, the topic sentence.
I mean, it's kind of all the topic point, but yeah.
And then where she says, I refuse, that I think is kind of like the argument.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we get down to, I refuse to give in and choose just one race to be. To do so would be to misrepresent who I am, right? This is like her stance on the issue. This is her position, that she is going to take this action because this is what it means to her. Yes?
Okay, so then if you break this down into this pie example, right? So the point should be the first sentence, right? People always label me as a black woman at first glance. But then the information is not necessarily this is only half correct, because that's still part.
Yeah, this is also part of her main point here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So now we will see the information. Here's the information.
Oh, okay, all right.
And then she goes on to say, to like back it up with a story, a specific example of like illustrating what she's talking about. While filling out applications throughout my life, I've always been asked to check one box for ethnicity. If I were to only check one box, I would be denying either my mother or my father. So instead, I do not mark a box at all, or I mark 2. Even then, when I marked 2 boxes and the form was reviewed, they questioned me by saying, with which group do you most identify? Does anyone relate to this?
Yeah.
I do too, yeah. So luckily now on most forms you can check multiple, or you can say other, or you can say biracial, or they have kind of more options now. But that seems like even really, really recent that we even have options like that. Okay, so what's going on here in the information? Yeah.
She's giving an example of her personal experience.
That directly relates to and illustrates what she's talking about
What she's
in that
talking
point.
about first, yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay, so now on to the explanation. So now, if you notice, she moves out of storytelling mode and into interpreting what was going on during the events of that story. They were asking this in an effort to force me to check one box, to get me to erase my complexity, which so clearly unnerved them. Society has forced many other racially mixed people and me to pick one race, and that is wrong. The fact that there are limited choices as to how many boxes I can check keeps expressing the fullness of who I am. So what do you notice is going on now? Yes, ma'am.
She's giving details to make you understand, like, what happened in that situation, or, yeah, even just giving details that helps us more understand.
Yeah, good. Good. What else do you see? Yes.
So that includes facts and what she thinks the society, that means what others think.
Yeah, she's interpreting what she believes kind of other people think or where they're coming from to explain their actions, right? So they are, let's see, to get me to erase my complexity, which so clearly unnerved them, right? So she's interpreting that, the government or whoever is asking for this data wants to think about people in terms of one category, right? You belong to this one or this one or this one. This idea of mixtures is sort of like not in the consciousness of whatever entity like created this survey. Yeah.
It makes her not pure one race. She's mixed with too many races, so that's what she's saying. Fullness of who I am.
Yeah, good. So then she kind of zooms out, right? She starts off with her own experience and her own story, and then suddenly she says, society has forced many other racially mixed people and me to pick one race, and that is wrong. And then I don't get to express the fullness of who I am. So she's kind of looking at, okay, how does my story like fit into a bigger context, right? What does it mean? What's the significance perhaps for other people who have gone through a similar situation? What does it reflect about how society works? And that's a really good point of analysis too. Looking at this like particular idea and then trying to like zoom out a little bit and figure out, how does it fit into society as a whole? Like what are other things that it can relate to? Does that part make sense? Okay, good. So at this time I would like us to take a look again at this handout that I gave you. So there are two more, at least one more, two more examples on page 3. Feel free to read those in lab if you would like to, but I want to give us plenty of time to do our activity. So look at page 4 back, where it says exercise. It says, following is a basic formula for writing a P.I.E. paragraph using a quotation or a paraphrase from an article or text assigned by me. Working with this formula, please write your own P.I.E. paragraph using a quotation or paraphrase from the article or text. Now, I'm going to give you the option of which source you want to use. So think about which essay question that you might want to choose, and which outside sources that you're going to use. So is it going to be Farewell to Manzanar? Is it going to be Too Many Would Be Terrorists? Is it going to be Myth of Latin Woman? Those are your 3 choices, right? So pick any one of those for this exercise to be your outside source. And then you're going to write a P.I.E. paragraph. So you don't actually have to write this all down unless you want to, but I do want the finished product to be typed. So you can kind of use this as a guide while you're typing to write your P.I.E. paragraph, or you can write it out first and then type it, although we're going to have just about like half an hour, maybe a little more, so you probably want to like not take extra time on that. But basically, the 1, 2, 3, 4 are just helping you run through how to write a P.I.E. paragraph. So you're starting out with your topic sentence. So it's some sort of point that you're going to make in relationship to what's going on in one of those articles or Farewell to Manzanar, whatever one you pick. And then you're going to prepare your reader to understand whatever quote that you're going to pull in. So you kind of introduce the outside source and how it relates to your topic. And then you're going to put your quotation in. What does a signal phrase mean? It says you will need to use a signal phrase to introduce your quotation.
Is that an arrow?
No,
Not an arrow, yeah.
it's gonna be, as the writer states, or something to that effect. It has to be, you're quoting, or in other words, the writer says in this paragraph, or the author put in this, or something to that effect.
Yeah, good. So when we're putting quotations into our essays, you can't just drop it in. That sentence needs to start off with your own words, and it can be as simple as saying, Judith Cofer writes, comma, quote, when I went to Dublin, some guy started singing to me, right? That's not an actual quote. But it has to start off with your own words, introducing it. So usually it's really easy to say, Kofer writes, the author states, the author argues, something like that, to like smoothly blend into that quote. And then you're going to do the E part. You're going to interpret the quotation, explain what it means, and then write some more analysis stating how it backs up and proves that topic. Okay. Are there any questions at this point before we go into lab? Yeah.
Yeah, this still a little unclear on the quotation portion for this second part of the exercise.
Okay.
So for that quotation, where you said we're gonna pick, where we're gonna head into?
Yeah, so within, say you're choosing myth of Latin woman that you want to work with. Within that, choose any quotation that relates to, a point that you want to make about the ideas in that reading.
Oh.
So your topic sentence could be something like, Latino women face having to deal with a lot of stereotypes in society. That could be your point, right? It's an argument, it's a claim that you're stating. And then you could use something in Kofer quotation to like back up that idea and then analyze it, talk about it. Is that cleared up?
Mm-hmm.
Other questions? All right, head out to lab. Oh, what? Yes.
What if you don't finish?
See how far you get in half an hour. And then how many of you saw my announcement/email about